Greetings, everyone, and welcome. October the 27th, 2025, midday here on the East Coast. Over the last 12 hours, we have had major developments happen. Vladimir Putin is pushing the envelope and pushing the hot buttons, not only of Donald Trump, but of the entire world with this new missile test and other things that we've picked up on. Donald Trump has responded off of Air Force One, and Lavrov has put out some video that is quite fishy about the Alaska summit. There's something fishy there, no pun intended, and I'll get to that at the very end. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, liking, commenting, and subscribing. We appreciate each and every one of you as we hunt for truth together, and we stand for what is right and freedom. We support Ukraine and all that is good in the world. Let's jump right here. Putin pushes, Trump reacts. You can see it in the title and the thumbnail, and we need to look here to start. If Vladimir Putin truly wanted peace, he would not be coming to the meeting in his Supreme Commander uniform. He loves just coming, showing up occasionally in his uniform, reminding that he's the Supreme Commander. I analyzed this photo a little bit more. On the right there, where the red arrow is, he's got his war maps. He's talking about the technical specifications of the new missile test. And by the way, this missile test has rattled world leaders. They are paying very close attention to it. Not only the timing of it, but the capabilities of it. Now, we have to wait for further confirmation to come. But if it continues to come that this was successful, this is a game changer for world stability. No question about it. All you have to see is Putin's in his uniform. What else do you need to know? He doesn't want peace. He wants war. So Donald Trump on his Asian tour makes a response on Air Force One about that missile test, and here is the video for you.
Russia said this week that they've tested a new missile that can go more than 8,000 miles. Is that Saber rattling for you? What is that?
They know we have a nuclear submarine, the greatest in the world, right off their shores. So, I mean, it doesn't have to go 8,000 miles, and they're not playing games with us. We're not playing games with them either. We test missiles all the time, but, you know, we do have a submarine, a nuclear submarine. We don't need to go 8,000 miles. And I don't think it's an appropriate thing for Putin to be saying either, by the way. He ought to get the war ended. A war that should have taken 1 week is now in its soon fourth year. That's what he ought to do instead of testing missiles.
All right, let's make it very, very simple. Yes, the United States has nuclear-powered submarines that can fire nuclear weapons, and they're probably close to Russia. But let's make it very clear. Russia also has nuclear-powered submarines that can launch nuclear-capable weapons, and they're close to America as well. It's been documented very often over the last 3 to 4 years as they just float around or sail around the planet. In addition, he says, you know, you shouldn't be testing missiles, but right after that, he says, we test missiles all the time. So the bottom line is we're looking for peace here, and you need to respond to Vladimir Putin with strength. A bully can only be bullied. So I do understand, you know, we've got a nuclear sub off the shore. That's great. Okay. But please be aware they do as well. So if you're going to portray strength, you have to follow through with the strength, and that we have yet to see. Now, Vladimir Putin today following through with strength. Now, let me be fair. Yes, we have sanctioned oil and gas, Lukoil and Rosneft. Let me be fair, but we have to put the hammer down, guys. It's getting critical right now on the front lines. It's a challenge, and Ukraine needs all the support possible globally. That's just where we're at. So if we're going to saber rattle and talk tough, we have to follow it up. Because Putin today, what did he do? Vladimir Putin has signed a law ratifying the Treaty on Strategic Partnership and Cooperation with Venezuela. Hello. How's that going to go for you? We're right now on the verge of invading Venezuela. When I say we, that is the United States, with a massive military buildup off the coast of Venezuela and South America. We're sending aircraft carriers there. We're now talking about, well, we might as well go get Colombia too. Nothing's going to be safe until they're killed and they're dead. That's the quotes from Donald Trump over the last few days. And now Russia, who has strategic military agreements with them, Russian weapons are all over Venezuela, locked and loaded and ready to go. This is serious, guys. And today, another agreement was signed. In fact, there is the agreement for you to see, that partnership between Venezuela and Russia. Secondly, Vladimir Putin has signed a law denouncing, breaking the intergovernmental agreement with the United States on the disposal of weapons-grade plutonium that is no longer used for defense purposes. This document, concluded in 2000 or drawn up in 2000, ratified in 2011, obliged Russia and the U.S. to dispose of 34 tons of plutonium each, which was recognized as surplus for military programs. Russia has now backed out of that agreement and broken it. Going to be interesting to see the responses. Dmitry Peskov coming out today with the official Kremlin statements. He said that the BLUESKY nuclear-powered cruise missile should not strain relations between Russia and the U.S. He says, but our connections and ties right now are at a minimal level. That's direct from Peskov, who speaks for the Kremlin. Peskov also updated that Putin met today in the Kremlin with North Korea's foreign minister. Putin also holding international phone talks with Venezuela. Hello, Venezuela, North Korea. He also stated that Trump's remarks that I just played for you about a U.S. nuclear submarine off of Russia's coast is his personal response in regard to the BLUESKY test. In our opinion, that's just the U.S. president's viewpoint because we also have nuclear submarines. He also said Russia remains open to improving relations with the U.S., but we will continue to pursue our national interest because the USA is also pursuing their national interest, whether it's tariffs with Canada, operation in Venezuela, Colombia, and the list goes on. He says, if you can do it, we can do it. Finally, he made a statement that Europeans are in a state of Russophobic and aggressive hysteria that further leads to the deterioration of global stability. That's Dmitry Peskov. And finally, we get to the last thing, and that is Sergei Lavrov. And this is where I say there's something fishy about Alaska. He met with Putin today. He's in Moscow. And the North Korean ministry affirming deep ties with North Korea, praising the North Korean military, the strategic military partnerships that are only growing. And Lavrov paid homage to the sacrifice of the North Korean troops who assisted in the defense of the Kursk region, and it will never be forgotten. But guys, there's something extremely fishy about Alaska. Do you remember all of the confusion when Witkoff came and had the regions wrong and Russia's ready to surrender this and exchange that and the war's going to be over? We're going to have peace next week. And then it had to be validated that he had no clue what he was talking about and had given false information. Well, now the truth is coming out. Alaska did not go well. I think we do have confirmation that Trump ended the meeting early and he was not happy. Let's look inside the mind of Lavrov for a moment. Listen to this.
President Putin came to Alaska with the agenda which had been brought to Moscow by Stephen Witkoff few days before the Alaska summit. And we looked into the proposals which Stephen Witkoff brought. And we said that we need to think about it. And then in Alaska, President Putin said that he is ready to cooperate on the basis, which was on the basis of the concept and the framework, which the envoy of President Trump brought to Moscow, and which they continued to discuss in Alaska. President Putin repeated each and every element of the concept which was brought by Stephen Witkoff, and was asking Stephen Witkoff, who was present at the discussions in Anchorage, is that right? Is that right? Everything was confirmed. And then President Putin said that we are ready to accept your concept, and that's how we believe we can move in specific terms on the basis of what you proposed. Then there was no direct response. They agreed that they should take some time to think about it.
There you have it. You know, that's a different angle and a different spin, but unfortunately, it actually makes sense because Alaska did not go well. Vladimir Putin, we know, came in and gave a historical lecture. They say it was over an hour where he gave the history. Of course, his warped view that Russia has everything. Everything is Russian. There are no borders for Russia. It's all, especially for Ukraine, it's Novorossiya, it's Donbass, it's historical Russian lands. It's all ours. But see, Witkoff had delivered information improperly. And then Russia turned and used it against him in Alaska. It's clear to see now. Remember, Witkoff went with no interpreter, no stenographer, nothing. He just went. He was supplied by the KGB on some of those meetings with translation. And then Putin goes to the Alaska summit, Witkoff sitting there beside Trump, and he lectures. Witkoff, didn't you say that? Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Isn't that right? And the trap was set. Hook, line, and sinker. That is why after the Alaska summit, you've seen so many flip-flops, you've seen so many changes, and nothing has happened. This is the inside look. I would love to have been a fly on the wall so I could tell you exactly what was stated, but it's very clear to say, very clear to see, and very easy to say. Massive miscommunication and misunderstanding because the United States sent an envoy to negotiate with Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov and Ushakov, Dmitriev, who was categorically unqualified, to which Trump himself admitted in Egypt just weeks ago. This is where we're at. There's no de-escalation in sight. Unfortunately, now everybody's saber rattling. The ones that are suffering most are the Ukrainians who are sitting in cold right now because their thermal power plants, their energy infrastructure is being relentlessly assaulted. But the warriors fight on, and they will fight on, and we stand with them do peremoga, until victory. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for sharing, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I hope this gives you some key insight today, October the 27th, 2025. Be blessed.